The number one US trend right now is Fredo. For those that aren't familiar, Chris Cuomo of CNN got triggered when someone called him Fredo, a reference to The Godfather, the weaker, more inept brother. He got angry. He flipped out. He threatened to throw this guy down the stairs. I think the story is funny and interesting. Chris Cuomo came out and apologized. And there's a lot of things about the story that I think are worth talking about. But I think it also shows that, man, our priorities are screwed up. We really do love the reality TV nonsense that is politics in our country. I think it's only going to get worse because people love the WWE style of politics. But look, man, Chris Cuomo got triggered. I believe what he did was completely inappropriate. I believe it's hypocritical and double standard. And yes, I believe we should absolutely call him out, and he apologized for it. So for some reason, it's still trending. Meanwhile, in Hong Kong, it seems like all hell is breaking loose. Fights are erupting. People have locked down the airport. All departing flights have been canceled. I'm seeing panic tweets from people saying they're stuck. There's a video of women climbing over the crowds, desperate to get on their flights. And now the police are coming in, beating the crap out of people. And I saw one video where a cop who was getting wailed on, they took his baton from him, so he drew his gun. And I thought to myself, why is Fredo trending? And I think it shows us what our priorities really are in this country. And I think it shows, in my opinion, a dangerous escalation in the culture war. It is much more interesting for us in the US to talk about Chris Cuomo losing his cool than it is to talk about the serious problems that are facing our world. International conflict, for instance. But I'll tell you what, I gotta say, I truly am baffled by this. I decided to take a look at the worldwide trends, and what I found was Hong Kong doesn't even appear on the trending list. And then I started thinking something. I am seeing a lot of people tweet about Hong Kong. I follow several people specifically because I want to make sure, I'm keeping track of what's happening in Hong Kong. We're entering an election cycle, so of course my focus is heavily on politics, but I'm absolutely paying attention because this is turning into an international crisis. We've got videos popping up of what looks like APCs, armored personnel carriers, and other vehicles being brought in from Shenzhen, from mainland China into Hong Kong. It is a complicated problem, but things are about to go nuts. We're seeing videos of people detaining protesters who they think are actually working with the police. The Chinese government is stepping in, and the president has begun tweeting about it. Our intelligence has informed us that the Chinese government is moving troops to the border with Hong Kong. Everyone should be calm and safe. Things absolutely are heating up. Now, I want to start by talking about. I will talk about a little bit about Cuomo moving on, because I think the core theme of this video is, guys, there's something happening in Hong Kong, and it's having a serious effect on us, and we are going to have a serious impact on them. All right, so that's what I want to talk about, and we'll talk a little bit about the WWE of politics. Check this out. Kaya Jones, Christian Grammy-winning vocalist, tweeted this out the other day, 20,000 retweets. Protesters in Hong Kong waving the American flag and singing the American national anthem as they advocate for democracy. That was profound. America and the American flag still represent something very, very important. Meanwhile, we're here complaining about Chris Cuomo being a mean guy to some dude who tried to bait him. Man, this to me is incredible. In another part of the world, in a special economic zone that's mostly controlled by mainland China, I think it's fair to point out it is, but they claim autonomy. The people there are singing our song, waving our flag, because America truly represents freedom. And I will stress, I have been to countries, and I will tell you, it absolutely does. The American flag represents tremendous freedom, prosperity. I mean, we have a Bill of Rights. These places are fighting for democracy right now, Hong Kong in particular, and we'll go through their demands, and I'll share the latest news. But not only are they singing the national anthem, some people have held up signs saying they need the Second Amendment, and that, to me, that's truly scary. When you see the videos of armored personnel carriers being brought in from mainland China, or of one of the Hong Kong cops drawing their weapon and pointing it at the protesters, you do realize they don't have a Second Amendment. Now, I don't think anyone, even in the US, should draw their gun on a cop because of a protest. But I will say this. The red line for the government is we as citizens have much more room because of the Bill of Rights. The government can't step over that line because they know if they do, things will get bad. Most Americans have a view of the world and they have a view of what we're allowed to do as citizens, and we will refuse to be pushed around within reason. Now, of course, cops will come and throw people to the ground, they'll arrest people, and yeah, that happens. If you protest, you recognize you're probably going to get arrested, and that will happen. But think about what the government knows. They know if they try and do something over the line, Americans do have weapons, and they can defend themselves, and it can be really, really dangerous, which means not that anybody ever should do this in 99% of circumstances, but it means the government also realizes they can't cross the line. In China, they know where the line is. China knows there's a line, but they also know they can cross it if they want because no one can do anything to stop them. And now it looks like things are about to get really, really bad. Check this out. Alexander Cross, the Chinese military, believing in the intel and these videos, have set in place a comprehensive military operation targeting the situation in Hong Kong. Now, look, I get it. What is China supposed to do when the protests won't stop? Perhaps you give in and grant them their autonomy. But at what point does Hong Kong begin fighting for complete independence? And China absolutely can't allow that. So the question then is, will this bubble up into a bigger international conflict? So here's what we're going to do. The first thing I'm going to say is there's one account I've been following for a lot of the Hong Kong news over the past couple weeks, actually. This is Laurel Chor. I have nothing to say other than it's a journalist who's been very on the ground covering this stuff. So give her a follow if you're interested in what's happening in Hong Kong. Laurelchor. And one of the main reasons I'm recommending Laurel is that I've seen no stupid American politics coming from her for the most part. I've gotten just a straight feed on the ground reporting, some good journalism, letting me stay in touch with what's happening to, all this stuff in Hong Kong, which, again, seriously important. You've got this person urging protesters to help block arrivals. You've got a woman trying to climb over the protest. So there's someone I'll recommend for a follow. I can't, it's really hard these days. I try to be careful about saying, hey, here's someone you can follow because you never know if someone's going to pop up with some nonsense American culture war stuff. But here's what I'm going to do. Let's take a look at the latest news from the Wall Street Journal. Hong Kong protesters overwhelmed airport for second day. Actually, let's refresh this specifically because you can see the photo has changed. Hong Kong airport occupation descends into violence. Protesters battle with police on second day of snarled travel plans. Now, I used to be on the ground for almost all of this stuff, and I have been very tempted to hop on a plane and just get back into it. But unfortunately, rumors are circulating, and I've reached out to some journalists, and word is they are detaining people who are trying to come in to cover this, specifically what we refer to as, journalists who enter on tourist visas. Now, here's the thing. For most countries, if you're a journalist, you can do a visa on entry, rubber stamp. Just walk up with your passport. I'm here as a tourist and film. China is savvy to this kind of thing, and they track people, and it can be impossible. So we've actually tried to figure out how to get people on the ground. We for the most part can't do it. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to read this, but then I'm going to go back to the Chris Cuomo stuff, and I want to talk about why the protesters are talking about America and how, in my opinion, we as Americans need to uphold that image of what America represents to those who are being beaten down by cops and fighting for democracy against what I believe Styx Hexenhammer referred to as the Red Menace, Communist China. The Wall Street Journal reports, police clashed with protesters at Hong Kong's international airport late Tuesday, capping a second day of snarled travel plans with a bout of violence. Tensions mounted after demonstrators seized a man they suspected was an undercover police officer. Witnesses said he was beaten and tied unconscious to a luggage trolley. Paramedics struggled to extract him from the crowd. Later, police with shields and batons attempted to make arrests, and protesters jammed into the departures area responded by throwing bottles and projectiles. Everything is out of control right now, said Jamie, a 21-year-old protester, as paramedics were struggling through the crowd. This movement doesn't have a leader. Everyone does what they want. We are seeing serious breakdown in Hong Kong. And what I'm mostly concerned about, this absolutely will have an impact on our relations with China. Donald Trump, look, we've been in a trade war. China's economy took a huge hit because of what Trump is doing. And I got to say, I've talked to some liberal friends of mine who said, they actually praise Trump's actions on China because China has been extracting our jobs, stealing our intellectual property, spying on us. I don't have the story pulled up, but I'm pretty sure they hacked Google at one point. So yeah, Trump is taking action against China. Now, the bigger concern here is what's happening in Hong Kong with them singing the national anthem. It's a small group, waving the American flag, and some people saying a Second Amendment. They know what America represents. America has become a shining light for many countries around the world. And that's why it's a damn shame that, it makes me really sad that what we're seeing in America is people complaining about Chris Cuomo. Look, man, not a big fan of the guy, but he did apologize. If that's what we're concerned about, we still are a symbol to these other countries that while they're being beaten down by a communist sort of government, demanding freedom, demanding the autonomy, saying get rid of this extradition bill, there are people there waving our flag, singing our song because, believe it or not, America still is a pretty damn free place. And that's a great thing, seriously important. But we've got these photos emerging, these videos emerging. I don't have them all pulled up, but man, things are lighting up there and they're looking to us. And that's why I feel kind of bad that what do we end up seeing for the most part? Trump is tweeting about Cuomo, and we've got CBS News, and I kid you not, it is the #1 trend here. Look, listen, that breaks my heart. I tweeted out, Hong Kong should be trending. Because this is the US trends, even the Hong Kong trend, I'm sorry, even the worldwide trend doesn't have Hong Kong. Maybe in some Chinese, I looked at some of the trends, it's like K-pop and America, and yes, Fredo is trending worldwide. We can do better, America, and we have to do better because we have people who are facing down APCs, and we have people who are waving our flags and singing our national anthem. So we need to be better. Americans need to step up. However, let me still talk a little about the Fredo thing because, look, man, as much as I will be critical of the focus Americans seem to have, I definitely want to highlight some of the hypocrisy. So first of all, why this story is trending? Well, look, when Ted Cruz was getting heckled in a restaurant, CNN, Don Lemon said, you know what? That's what he signed up for. Chris Cuomo on the radio, so that's the wrong story. Chris Cuomo on the radio referred to himself as Fredo. And then, so it's kind of a hypocrisy to have somebody defend Antifa, to have CNN as a network claim, hey, you signed up for this when you're a public official. I know he's not a public official, but he's a public figure. And then for him to get triggered and threaten to throw a guy down the stairs. Then, look, when the president starts tweeting about it and starts referencing red flag laws, I can understand why we as Americans will start focusing on the story. So I'm not gonna just ignore the story. But I do want to stress, first and foremost, the guy apologized. I'm over it. I'm completely over it. Okay, great. He apologized. Can we talk about something that's seriously more important? And can we, as Americans, not? I mean, is this what people are expecting from us when they're being beaten by cops, when their government is sending in tanks, APCs? I shouldn't say tanks. When they're sending in APCs, and they look at us and we're complaining about Chris Cuomo and being called a dumb name. So we will read a little bit more of this story, and then I'm going to end with one more critique on the Cuomo side. So just wait for it. They say, protesters waved posters depicting alleged police brutality and chanted pro-democracy slogans. Protesting in the airport is the best way to tell the world what's happening in Hong Kong. Other core municipal facilities were also affected by protests Tuesday. Staff for at least 8 public hospitals went out on strike. Hundreds of doctors, nurses, and paramedics staged a walkout at Queen Mary, one of the city's largest public hospitals, in protest of what they saw as excessive police brutality during the previous weekend's demonstrations. In a morning news conference, the city's leader, Carrie Lam, choked back tears and warned protesters were dragging Hong Kong into the abyss. Protests have embroiled Hong Kong this summer, sparked by a proposed law that would have allowed the Chinese government to extradite and prosecute Hong Kong citizens. A broad swath of the city rallied in opposition to the law. Hong Kong's government declared the bill dead in response, but thousands of Hong Kongers continued to demonstrate, calling for an inquiry into police conduct and a more democratic government. Probably one of the most important stories today, and for whatever reason, I'm not surprised that Americans love the reality TV WWE show much more. I can't blame anybody. I mean, look, People feel like CNN is lying, they're partisan, they're making things worse, and the culture war is escalating. So I'll stress a few points. It's funny to me, you can see George Takei in 2017 saying Don Jr. should be called Fredo. We have this story where even on Cuomo's own show, Ana Navarro called Don Jr. Fredo. The hypocrisy is thick, and I can absolutely understand why people are angry and why this story is top trending. I just think we need some rational thought here. While we can absolutely call out the Cuomo story, which I am doing, I want to point out the serious implications of an international crisis coming from Hong Kong. We have conflict with China in the South China Sea. Tensions have been escalating. You know, China is engaging in oil exploration and pushing the U.S. in many different countries. They're in Africa, they're in South America, they're in the Middle East, they're everywhere. And they are pressing us on the South China Sea. Their economy is expanding, and China is a serious threat. And Trump knows it. Trump has absolutely called it out the whole time. Extracting jobs through free trade agreements, us sending our factories over to China. Did you know skateboards in the U.S., they will source rock maple from either the Northwest or Canada, ship it to China for the labor because the labor is so cheap, and then send it back. It's a huge waste of energy. It's bad for the environment, it's a waste of money, and why are we sending our jobs overseas, especially when China is expanding the way they are? All of that is extremely important, and if we don't pay attention to that because we're being preoccupied by silly stories about Cuomo, we're in trouble. I'll make a couple more points though. I have to wonder, is Twitter suppressing Hong Kong because of the threats that Twitter might get taken down in certain areas, or that they don't want to have a hand in or be accused of what's happening in Hong Kong? Accused of being involved to an extent. I don't know if they're using Twitter in Hong Kong, but absolutely if it was trending, instead of Fredo, you will see more people highlighting the plight and more action being taken. Perhaps Twitter is intervening. I don't like being conspiratorial, so I'm not going to play that game. I'm just saying we know Twitter plays the silly game. Why would they allow Fredo to trend, but not certain other things in the past? Is it true that people just don't care about Hong Kong? That breaks my heart. Or perhaps it's that Twitter doesn't want people to be talking about what's happening. They want us to be bickering amongst ourselves. They would prefer it. I'm not saying, okay, let me walk that back. I don't want to get super conspiratorial. But I would say the powerful elites in this country would much prefer it if we're bickering amongst ourselves over whether or not Chris Cuomo was right to get angry or not and whether his apology matters, instead of focusing on a potential international crisis. And I'll end with one obvious point. Of course, I would much prefer all of you to be paying attention to what's happening in Hong Kong. Again, I'll throw it to Laurel. Don't know too much about her other than she's been covering it, and I respect that. Because while all of us are busy twirling, spinning around in circles, complaining about CNN and Donald Trump's tweets, she's been on the ground. I'm not acting like she's better than anybody else. It's just someone I'm following, so you can follow her. And I will absolutely use this trend to try and shed light on news that's more important. I fully recognize, and I want to stress, don't think I'm not aware, and don't think other people aren't aware, and I'm sure you are, that we spend too much time talking about reality TV style politics when more important things are happening. And we know what's going to get clicks. I know that talking about Chris Cuomo is way more valuable than talking about Hong Kong. Absolutely. So I think, I'll be honest. I was looking at the story and I'm like, if I talk about Hong Kong, will it just fall on deaf ears? Does anybody really care? And then I saw the Chris Cuomo story. I'm like, this is what Americans care about? And I got kind of upset about it. I'm like, no way, man. But you know what? I will absolutely use the story to make sure we can talk about what matters and have this exact conversation. Sometimes there are stories that we think are important, and there are more important things happening in the world that we need to pay attention to. And you can not like me for it, you can disagree, but I think we are people of principle. I think most people will absolutely agree when someone points it out. That's what I'm hoping. That by highlighting the Chris Cuomo story, but talking about Hong Kong, we will recognize what is truly important, and it's this insanity. China is a threat to the United States. Okay, Chris Cuomo isn't. He's a silly guy who got angry and we can make fun of him all day and night. I wish we were focused more on this. And so it kind of just came together that way. I can't believe that Fredo is the #1 trend. I can't believe that that's who we are as Americans. And I gotta say, it really does make me emotional when this is what I see. People in Hong Kong with the police beating them down and tanks coming in and they're waving our flags. And what are we doing? We're talking smack about Chris Cuomo. When they look to us and they say, we are the country of freedom and they are a part of China, semi-autonomous, with China bearing down, and you can see this video. And that's why this video has 20,000 retweets, because we still get it. We do. So here's what I ask of all of you. Let's start talking about what's happening in Hong Kong, because they're holding up signs, at least one person, saying we need the Second Amendment, because we have it. There are people there waving our flags and singing the American national anthem. They don't have to be America. They don't have to like America, but they can like what that flag represents. And I'll tell you this, we have seen protesters burn the flag, because burning the flag is an amazing and powerful image of the freedom that flag represents. It is possibly the most powerful symbol of freedom. To burn the actual sign of freedom is the greatest sign of freedom. And to see people in other countries singing our song and holding our flag says to me, I want to make sure that we pay attention and we represent that flag well. I am getting pretty emotional on this one because that says a lot to me. Okay, I've been to countries like Egypt. I've been to Morocco. I've been to Ukraine. I have been to Brazil. I have seen places where they struggle without freedom, without a Bill of Rights. In Brazil, there are comedians who are being threatened with jail over jokes. In the UK, Count Dankula getting arrested, and there is that American flag flying in Hong Kong. America is awesome. But please, Americans, can we focus on Hong Kong instead of Chris Cuomo? I get it. You know, calling out the hypocrisy and staying focused on defending our freedom requires, defending our freedom requires making sure that we as Americans challenge those who we feel are hypocritical and we stand up. But right now, there's something big happening, and that's just me. And if you disagree with me, I respect you for it, because that's also a part of being American. So I did my best. I did my best. I wanted to make sure we talked about Hong Kong, but there we are. So anyway, thanks for hanging out. Stick around. The next segment will be at youtube.com/TimCastNews starting at 6 p.m., and I will see you all there.